things backwards.
And we're back.
And we're back.
Hey,
Paul,
Christian,
good to
how's
see
it
you.
going?
Good. How you
Good.
been?
How you been?
I've been great, man. I'm actually
I,
enjoying
I
this fall weather.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we've had some really nice. It's going to be 72 and sunny today in
Nice.
Santa Cruz,
Yeah, nice.
which on October 10th is
I'm
very
about 10
nice.
degrees warmer here in Texas, but I'll take it.
That works. That
Yeah,
still works.
yeah.
So are you firing on all cylinders?
Man, I'm coughing on all cylinders apparently. Um,
Oh,
I don't think I've ever fired on all cylinders. How about you?
I like that answer because the first question is, what are the cylinders? And then secondly, do they have to all be firing at all times? And is it
Yeah.
better to not have them be firing all the time?
Yeah, I think, and just to kind of let everybody in on the joke, for us, the cylinders are when you're a founder, your business has all kinds of different aspects to it. There financial management, there's, managing people, there's, sales, marketing, like there's all kinds of aspects to your business that all kind of have to be working right, or at least right enough, in order for that business to be successful. And so, I always come at it a little bit from the tech perspective, but because I'm both kind of the tech guy and a business guy, I'm a founder just like you are. Um, and so there's also, choices that we make about the technology and the tools we use. So my question is, I feel like I get one cylinder firing and then another cylinder goes out. I feel like that's
Mm.
kind of like been my life for the past 15 years.
That resonates. Yeah, that lands. I think
Yeah.
I would have a slightly the way I would put it is that certainly there are things that go wrong, and there's a cylinder that needs attention or that's calling you to
Mm-hmm.
take care of it, right?
Right.
Do you have to be so you have to be aware of all the cylinders, I think,
Yeah.
for the most part, or at least have them sort of mapped out somewhere,
Yeah.
mentally or sort of organized in some way.
Yeah.
um, Priorities, heat map. I like the idea of a heat map. Like there are times when,
Oh, yeah. That's a good way to put
what's
it.
the priority? A big project, or you've been working on, landing a deal. Your cylinder shifts from kind of acquisition and housekeeping of,
Right.
closing the deal or whatever into onboarding,
Mm-hmm.
which you also, you want to go smoothly.
Yeah.
Um, but as a solopreneur, as a founder, you always have to sort of have a sense of the whole thing, right? You've got to pay bills, and then there's all the personal stuff, right? You're
Yeah.
balancing your business cylinders with all the other cylinders of whatever those things happen to be: social life, family
Yeah.
life, etc.
Yeah.
But
That's a good point.
so I think the priorities shift. I think the priorities, the priorities shift.
Yeah. The family thing's one that really resonates with me because when I became an entrepreneur, which goes back to when I quit my job and fell into entrepreneurship, I uh, I had my oldest son was just starting college, like that year, right?
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so yeah, because this was in 2009. So I guess he was maybe a sophomore, and then I had two more, that were in high school coming up that way, and so it was always a concern as to what's going to happen to them if I'm not firing on all cylinders, right? I mean,
Right.
it's just how it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a mindset largely. Maybe that's, part of the
Hmm.
answer is, firing on all cylinders. Like I think intuitively, and after you've been doing this for a while,
Yeah.
you sort of feel it. You just know that there's a lot to manage. And it depends on the phase, right? Are you forming like early days? Are you forming your business?
Yeah.
What legal entity? But after the business gets running, there's kind of this intuitive sense of, I think it's a couple things. One is, of course, things call your attention. If your
Yeah.
pipeline is soft, you're going to have to to ramp up the marketing or do
Yeah.
some more outbound or figure something out, right?
Right.
If you're lucky enough to fall into a flurry of business, then that maybe delegation or hiring or something along those lines needs your attention. But there's always, it's a complicated thing. I was listening to something the other day and I meant to write it down, but it was sort of like three areas, right? I want to say people, process, and culture, but maybe it was product, because people and culture is similar. But
Yeah.
there's the people and the culture, there's the people you're working with, there's the process that you all want to, which is a big one, you all want to sort of conform to, or not everybody's just doing their own thing in their own way.
Yeah.
And then there's maybe product or service, right? The actual thing that you're selling. But then within those, right, there's a dozen, it's a dozen things related to people and culture. There's a dozen things related to processes.
Yeah.
There's back office process. There's client services processes.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because do you consider yourself a solopreneur or an entrepreneur, or both?
Yeah, I sort of accidentally, I think, said solopreneur, entrepreneur, because I don't think there. Is there such a thing? I don't never really loved solopreneur, like, because you don't do anything alone. Even if you're if you're a individual consultant, or you're trying to kind of build a new product or take something to market, you still, you're relying on so many people. So I consider myself, I suppose, an entrepreneur.
Okay. But in your company, you don't have employees.
No.
Right. So some people might consider you a solopreneur. Although I feel like it's a really fuzzy, not only definition, but like just the boundaries of that definition or of that term are incredibly fuzzy, right?
Yeah.
Because just because you don't have employees, you may have, contractors, you may have people who depend on you. You may have like a whole network of folks that you deal with almost as if they're they're employees. So I think that anyway, the reason I asked that is I feel like there is a bit of a distinction that people might make in that case, and I was wondering, considering things firing on all cylinders, I think there are different challenges. Because somebody like me that, I have a staff, I have a CTO, I have somebody that handles my accounting, I have, a sales guy, I have someone who is, in charge of project management and teams and so forth. And there are so many things that I do. So in a way, it broadens the scope of what I'm doing. As that team grows. And so I have more things to think about, but also I can delegate. And if I'm successful at delegating, right, then those cylinders kind of fire on their own, at least for a while, right? And the way that I maintain them is differently. I don't have to be quite as hands-on, but I still have to be aware, when something's going wrong at a certain point. Whereas whereas if you're a solopreneur, like you have to address everything all the time by yourself for the most part, right?
So this is why I sort of challenged the definition, because so when I first started as the quintessential, I'm going to go off, I'm going to do my own thing, I'm going to be my own boss, I'm going to bootstrap this thing from the ground up. It took me a little while to realize, the shift to, there are absolutely things. I would have, and I was thinking about writing this up, I would have saved myself tens of thousands of dollars if I had just pulled the trigger earlier on getting help with things that I could do myself, and I did do myself, but that somebody else could do faster and better, not cheaper, right? Because I'm just putting my time, but in the long run, cheaper, right? That was the insight.
Yeah.
And I advise, like, people like me, or me 5 or 6 years ago going out, I'm like, give yourself some budget.
Yeah.
You're going to save yourself. You need to go out and get customers right now. Like you're on your own. You're launching a new business. You need to be focused 100% on sales, or 98% on sales. All the other stuff, and people get distracted. Oh, I want to, I need to formulate my company. What credit card do I use? And those things are important, but you can outsource a lot of that. And so now, I look at my business and I say, man, I'm not alone. I've got all kinds of people that I rely on. Anyway, so, but then, someone like you, where you're officially hiring and managing, the mindset definitely shifts, right? Your cylinders, or the cylinders that require your attention, become very different, I think.
Yeah.
And that's the key to becoming a true leader, a true owner, ownership mindset, as opposed to, doing everything yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess so. Like, I would, maybe challenge it, not so much the concept, but maybe the way that kind of came out is, I feel like, we are not like entrepreneurs in a vacuum. It's not like you said before, you were talking about our family, right? There are people who depend on us. And once you leave kind of that corporate world, or, you stop working for somebody else, these folks, your family, above all, but, maybe you have people in your faith, maybe you have certain contractors that kind of depend on you for those business, and you feel some sort of a loyalty or an obligation to them. They're, they're almost like employees at that point.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There's certainly obligations, let's put it that way. And you get close to these folks, and like last week, unfortunately, or actually it wasn't last week, it was this week, man, that I, because of some changes in the way our business was operating and circumstances, I actually had to let somebody go that had worked with us for a very long time. And it wasn't, it was really sad for me, but you have to pretend it's not, in the moment, like because when somebody's losing their job, and a job they've had for a long time and done, well at, or well enough at, it becomes you want to make sure you don't make it about you, right? And I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole, but, here I am, like, it's really tough for me saying goodbye to this person, but you know what? That person just left their job. Like, I got to be strong. Yeah. You got to be strong for them. Anyway, going back to kind of what I was talking about is, like, you have these obligations, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs have a hard time kind of prioritizing those obligations.
Okay.
Right? And I think it's tough. But I wanted to go back to what you said. Like, you were saying that there are things that you could have done that would have saved you tens of thousands of dollars. Do you mind, like, giving a specific example? I'm not trying to embarrass you. I'm just trying to...
Oh, yeah. I think easy things are like again, just a landing page or a website, because it is, so again, I would, the sidebar of this podcast could be called the frugal founder. Like I really pride myself on, using the resources that I have to the maximum, and being conscious of that. And I think that's a good trait.
I think we feel, when we become entrepreneurs, we almost feel obligated to pinch pennies to a certain extent. I feel like that mindset comes in because you're like, okay, I've got this much money in the bank and I've got this much revenue coming in. I want this thing to last as long as it can. And so I'm going to do stuff myself instead of giving it to someone else to do. Yeah.
So the primary thing that happened. So again, I say, and I think you should pinch pennies, and I think you should, you should be
careful.
Yeah. But, so it was outbound. It was like, so my career, and so maybe, I don't know if it was so much financially driven as I was reflecting on my career, which is now quite long.
Yeah.
And I said, every job I've ever had, every client I've ever earned, every project I've ever won, it's not really an overstatement to say it's all come through my network and personal referrals.
Right.
And so I had this, and I was sitting around going, this is insufficient. I want to be bigger. I want to have more, more pipeline. I want to have I want to have a portfolio of clients that extends beyond referral.
Yeah.
And so I suspected there was something I should be doing. And this is the way I phrased it. I was like, there's something I should be doing for an hour a day that I'm just missing, and I don't know what to do. And so that started a process which littered with errors.
Right.
But I first hired somebody almost like a coach to help coach me in sales. So
Right.
how do I move beyond my network or what have you? And that largely failed. Because I was looking for, what should I do for this hour or two a day that I'm not currently doing? And it was do more of what you're doing. And then I landed a client,
Right.
and it was from my, from my network. And I was like, so maybe the thing was wrong. My own criteria may have been wrong. But then I would go to LinkedIn, and I've got a friend who's super successful at this. He does it, sits there. He calls it a meditation almost. He'll sit on LinkedIn for a couple hours and do outbound. He'll, use all his LinkedIn and do it several times a week. And he's like, I'm up late. He's a night owl, pour a glass of wine or whatever, and I'll just kind of do this.
Right.
And I tried that, and it just wasn't me. So then I got some help, and I think, and everything's been a lot different the last 6 to 9 months because there's AI. Before it was kind of like automation, and it was a little unique, and up until ChatGPT. I mean, ChatGPT in 2022,
two, yeah.
Yeah, kind of changed
GPT
everything.
2 was 22, I think. Yeah.
Yeah,
That was the one that sort of changed the game.
so it was a little bit of investment where for a couple grand a month. I mean, I spent, and you and I talked about this. You worked with an organization, and I think we both kind of put in 5 to 10 grand to kind of get into and that was really hard for me, but it helped. And I can't say it was the answer, but I learned a ton in a very short period of time. I accelerated my learning. I started to dial in on what was a match for me versus, it might work just because something works in the market, like spamming thousands of email addresses, for instance.
Yeah.
Just because that works for some businesses, it wasn't certainly not.
And that,
So at any
that's a pretty important point, because not everybody has the same cylinders. And the way, even like different businesses within the same industry, within the same context, often have very different success formulae. Which is kind of one way of saying, well, there are many cylinders out there. You just need a group of them to fire properly.
Good point.
Right?
Yeah, it's a good point.
For your business to work. So it's your cylinders firing. Bro, I think one of the things is kind of going back to what you said. I think one of the things that I recognized early on. So I had this boss who was back in the day. In fact, we should probably have him on the show at some point. But this would have been, 90s, 2000s. And one thing that I really liked about him, which he had that I did not, was the fact that he was very self-aware. I was kind of one of these people who considered himself resourceful, which I think I am resourceful, but to a fault where I thought I could do everything myself, right?
Yeah.
And and when you launch this business and you start a business, I maybe it just like always clicks in, but I think people who can't recognize their own shortcomings and the things that they struggle with, um, and find somebody complimentary or somebody who can fill those gaps.
Yeah.
Like if you can't do that, it's very difficult to fire on all cylinders, right?
Yeah.
It's very difficult. So you have to at least be aware of what you don't do well. And in your case, you were like, hey, I like the whole sales thing, and the way that's working, like that's not my strength. I need to work with somebody on that. And that comes down to the penny pinching, because like consultants are expensive. Like you said, you spend 5-10 grand, working with somebody to kind of help you improve your game. Right now I'm spending about 50, right, on a consultant for that very thing. And I'm getting results that I haven't seen before. So I'm very, very
50.
Yeah, about 50. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I'm glad you're getting results you haven't seen before.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. So we're starting to get results. We're getting, we're the top of the funnel is filling up. We're getting meetings. We're starting. Yeah. And these are people that are, not only like our ideal customer profile.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they also kind of seem to be in the need state. So
yeah,
I don't know, yet. I guess in a few episodes we'll talk about how it all went.
Yeah.
But it's definitely, when you realize like I really need help here, and you really, one thing our CTO said was like, how important is this for our company?
Right.
Like when we were considering spending that money, and I'm
great question. Yeah.
Super
it's
important.
Yeah.
And it's like, so are you guys, are you making progress on your own? And I'm like, not fast really enough. Yeah. Right. I need somebody that can really accelerate this. And, and then it's like, oh, well, it doesn't seem like a lot of money. Yeah. At that point, you're like, how important is this? It's critical. Like sales, without sales, nothing happens.
Yeah. So I love the story. And I think once you start to get into that realm of, and this is maybe a false statement, but when you're trying, so one of the big lessons was I was, and why I burned through so much was I was sort of, I don't want to say, I was in a sense buying at the low end of the market.
Yeah.
So I was price shopping, and rather than going with the $50,000, because that would be a very big leap for me.
Yeah.
Especially at the gate, but it's kind of and it's not specifically that scenario, but the lesson was, you get what you pay for. Yeah. And so I think there's a couple of things. One is, what self-awareness is hard. What are you good at? What are you not? I start with, what do you like doing and what don't you like doing? Because if there's things that need to be done, but you find yourself not doing them, it's like the procrastination thing you're doing. It's like, well, I would start to look at that area going, this is business development's critical, but I hate doing it. Maybe start, with some investment there. And then I would really do, I consider myself somebody who does some due diligence, but I think when I look back on it, I did a little checking of references and all of that, but really evaluating who it is that you're going to work with to ensure that you're on the same page. Because, I'm not a founder that's great at sales. I've encountered several founders that are great at sales. I'm good at service delivery. I'm good at keeping clients happy.
Mm-hmm.
I've encountered in this process, I've encountered several founders that are great at sales. They're really bad at service delivery.
Yeah, no, and it's funny. Like in the software development business, there are sort of two kinds of companies. So they're the ones that have a really good team that's good at delivering results. And they are constantly struggling to keep that team busy. right? Because once you
Yeah.
have a good team, like you want to. And then there are other companies that are basically sales companies,
Yeah.
and then they sell a project, and then they hire someone to do it for them, and you have
Yeah.
no idea. Maybe you'll get a great team, maybe you won't get a great team,
Yeah.
and it's very difficult to tell the difference. And I would almost say, you know, the ones that you liked best, they're probably the wrong kind.
Yeah. Well, this is why I go back to, so ultimately full circle, it was, all right, if you've gotten all your business through personal relationships and stronger relationships and references, focus on an authentic, focus on building more of those relationships, right? It was so, and why I bring that up was people, I I was looking at an area that, so I was the leader, and this is often the case. Like, I was looking at going, we had a problem in this industry, right? Creative agencies, all of our business has been through word of mouth and referrals. We need to start doing something else now that post COVID, you used to be able to drive up the peninsula, you'd have half a dozen, you'd fill your pipeline just by going and having coffees, and because everybody's got stuff going on. COVID shut all that down. In-person networking and that accidental water cooler stuff has
Gone away.
yeah. But I think there's something that's coming back a little bit, because
I think so.
to your point, when you're trying to find a supplier or somebody to help, when you've got somebody, like if you said, Christian, this is who I use, and here are the 3 people I use for this, that, and the other thing, check them out. You've accelerated my research, and that trust, you've already engaged with that. I had none of that with this business development stuff. Now I do. Now I'm the one who can say, avoid these and go for this. But still, anyway.
That's just a great point.
Yeah, it's sort of a meta thing where, and I like this phrase, your network is your net worth. Like, I just think there's no more value there, and there's nothing more valuable than just making a connection with somebody, understanding what their business is, understand what those problems are, and being curious about what they're faced with, whether or not you can solve it or not. Yeah. It's in fact, 9 times out of 10, it's not you, or maybe even 99 times out of 100, it's not you.
Yeah.
But when you can, and we've done this for each other for years. Hey, referral or what have you. And,
absolutely.
And that, I think that's part of the key to business growth. We can go in a whole other direction on that, but let's make sure we're staying on cylinders.
Staying on topic, on the cylinders. I agree. And one of the things you said really, really hit home is like, you want to outsource, whatever that means, whether that means hiring people, if your business allows for that, or working with consultants, or, finding somebody part-time, whatever. You want to find people that, or you want to get rid of the things you don't like to do. I was reading a book by the founder of SaaS Academy, and I can't remember his name, but I met him at the SaaS stock event early this year, and the book itself is called Buying Back Your Time.
Yeah.
And it goes in, and that concept is really good. Now, like most business books, this one is 100 times longer than it needs to be. Most of them could be 1-pagers, right? And so, but there is value in that, meaning like, you get the concept in 1 page, but reading the book itself, you sort of, you start to ponder on it, you start to think about it. It's, and whether, it's just kind of churning over the same concepts, or it's just exploding out concepts that you immediately understood from just looking over the table of contents.
Right.
It just kind of helps you to start thinking about your own. And maybe that's just me, maybe because like I've always been a distracted reader, and once it starts to get me into a train of thought, it's like, I start applying that myself. Next thing I know, I've read 3 pages, I have no idea what they say. Which I found out is a common thing. I thought it was just me. I thought
it's
like
just,
there was something wrong with me, and then I found out, oh, that's really common.
all right. So I got to pause for a sec because I know nothing about cars. So firing on all cylinders. I'm like, yeah, I get it conceptually.
Mhm.
Living in living in the South, but buddies where, it was older cars around they wouldn't start. They would open the hood, and there was a spray can of something, and they would just spray that on some part of the engine, and then that would start the car. Like, it wouldn't start, and they'd be, hold on a second, and they'd have a can or two
Of
in
whatever.
in the trunk, and then they do it, and then the car would start. That's you in reading, right? It's like you just get, like, you're just stuck a little bit. You need to start the book, and then you're 3 pages in, you don't realize you're already moving along.
Yeah.
Because you're back. And I think that's the mindset of, I think that's a characteristic of entrepreneurship. Or of leadership.
Yeah.
There's a stat around CEOs, like
How many
an
of them are
incredible
psychopaths? Is that? That's a real thing.
Different podcast.
Okay. That's our true crime podcast. We're gonna do that one next. CEO killers. CEO serial
No,
killers.
it's what's the word? Now you got me thinking about it. When you mix up letters, you've got dyslexic. Yeah, so there's like an inordinate amount of like Fortune 500 CEOs compared to the regular population have dyslexia. Why? Because it's not about reading and getting stuff. It's about connections with people. It's about making stuff happen. It's not an academic exercise, man. It's about keeping things moving.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not. Yeah, and I was very successful academically. I graduated my bachelor's degree, magna cum laude, and then I was awarded the gold medal at my MBA program at Bocconi, which was given to, I think, 4 people out of 400, something like that, or 200, and I realized, boy, that was all BS. Like, that doesn't help me at all that I did well in school. I wish I'd made more connections. I wish I had, maybe socialized a little bit more, because I gave up some of the socialization to get the coursework done.
I love this. So as a father, do you think that's impacted how you parent?
I'm self-aware. I may not be that self-aware. So probably not.
Well, it has me, because I like you, I came to the realization, and I was not magna cum laude. I was just proud to get the cum laude, but no golden medals here, but but I had an instance where my daughter, it was that age where you're kind of moving, and it's probably around high school, maybe it was high school, freshman year or something, where you move from, all right, you show up at class to grades start to matter. And it was the pressure. I could see the pressure, and I was like, here's the secret.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. What matters is you made the effort. And I think this is Silicon Valley 101, right? It's like, keep trying and fail. And I don't love to break things and fail forward faster entirely, but there's good principles in there, which is, bias towards execution. I think that's one of my favorite phrases. Peter Temis at the ILO Institute gave that one to me, and it's always stuck. Just move forward. And now I may have created a monster, because suddenly she was like taking AP classes in subjects that she was not scoring well in, but she was like, I want to see how I want to learn.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I think that it's critical, and there's a whole other area around, what makes a great successful entrepreneur, right? Because 70% of businesses fail and all that. I was listening to something the other day about it's a tolerance for pain. Like, can you get up again? As painful, like, you rage quit. I know you don't like to talk about it, but you rage quit. It's pain.
No,
it was so.
I do like to talk about it.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe that'll be a next episode. But as painful as it was after time to get up and kind of go to the grind of working for somebody else, and you know, this is, I think in retrospect, going out on your own, venturing out on your own, and figuring that out is 100 times more painful in a way, but 1,000 times more rewarding, because you're in, and control is the wrong word, but you have agency. You have the ability to make the decisions. You have to make the decisions. So at any rate.
For sure. No, I totally agree with that. And a couple things struck me when you were saying that. So one is probably in the late 90s, and people tease me about this all the time, but I created an account online for this little book selling company called Amazon. And I must be like, I must have been one of their first customers.
Sellers.
Yeah, first customers, because people laugh at me because of my ID, right? Like you have this account ID number, and mine is like really, really low. And they're like, oh my gosh, like, and I tell them, I signed up in the 90s. They're like, nobody's signed up in the 90s. Yeah, I signed up in the 90s, right?
They sold books. That's all they did was sell books back then.
Yeah, and not very many books, right?
Yeah.
Like,
right?
They had maybe a million books, which sounds like a lot until you realize there are, hundreds of millions of books that have been written. But, I remember, and I signed up for, and I can't remember why. There was like a book I wanted to get, so I signed up for an account, and we just started using it, and then of course became Prime members and stuff like that. But that being said, like that was sort of I didn't know what was going to happen. It was the first time I signed up for an account for anything online, because people didn't have online accounts back then.
There wasn't a lot of options. There weren't a lot of things to sign up for.
Most websites you go to, they didn't ask you to create an account. It's not like today where they're just trying to spy.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
I hadn't thought about it. Yeah. Register.
Yeah. So I just kind of, went for it. But getting back to that, like I've always kind of had this affinity toward technology and towards playing with it, experimenting with it. And then, in the early 2000s, I remember I created a website for myself. It was like 5 pages, and I did it with, I can't remember what, Microsoft had some program. I had no idea like how that even worked, right? I didn't understand the basic concepts of the internet at all. Yeah. I just knew I wanted a web page, so I created one. And so, it was just kind of playing with things that sort of got me down that path I was going in. So anyway, like, I think you also have to have kind of an idea that, you're going to play with stuff.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And a lot of it's not going to, pan out, or at least maybe for a while,
I love that you said that, because that feels good. Because lately I've had this guilty, it's a guilty pleasure thing or whatever, where I'm like all of the, and we have to have a head to head on this, the vibe coding stuff. Like, I'm not a coder, and I've already gone down the path. I've told you about this, where I'm like, I'm firing on all cylinders. I'm super creative. Like, oh, I can just make this happen. And then House of Cards, the whole thing falls down.
Well, that should maybe be our next episode, is talking.
I think so. But I like, but the what you're putting forth there about curiosity and just play, right? It's really important, I think. And that goes in with the pain thing. Like, give yourself time just to do something because you're curious about it, or because you enjoy it, or because you're interested in it. It doesn't all have to be, business.
Right. Which is also really hard to do if you don't know what to delegate, right? If you don't have a way of offloading some of that stuff that just has to be done. I don't know if you have an accountant, but man, when I looked at the people that I brought on board early on,
right. Yeah.
The accountant was like one of the first things that I hired. Because I just hate account. I mean, I'm actually kind of good at it. but I'm not excited about it at all. So that in fact, if my accountant's listening, you're going to be the last person that we lay off in a bad market.
There you go, job security. I hate what you do, so I'm going to keep you around.
Yeah, it's like that. So, and then the next thing was a sales guy, and then the next was project manager.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, there's sometimes, as you know, I've been with a few fast growing agencies, and it's interesting to see how different their first hires were, so to speak. So you say accountant or whatever.
Yeah.
One big one was like we had an HR person before anybody. And it's like, well, what do we need HR for?
Yeah.
And it was setting up for high rapid growth, because having the ability to quickly recruit and onboard and get somebody into the project and sometimes especially with large enterprises, the whole all the bureaucracy of all that, right? So having somebody that can master that. But anyway, I think it's important to look for help early. I think it's important to probably penny pinching's fine, but loosen the purse strings a little bit, and make an investment in yourself. I think there was something happened year or two ago where it was I need to hire some help. And with this gigification or whatever of the economy, you have so many options. I mean, I heard the other day somebody said fractional CEO. I was like, a fractional CEO. Yeah. I guess you can fraction out anything.
I had somebody ask me if I wanted to do that.
Is that right?
Yeah, wow. They wanted me to take over another company, and I'm like, I'm kind of busy. But but I could see like, oh yeah, like if you've got two or three companies under your belt, or like maybe you're old enough that you only want to work part-time, right? And a lot of companies don't need that, and I think that's funny. Like there are some founders whose first hire should absolutely be a CEO, because they suck at managing the business. And once you have somebody that like can do it, like the back, just knows managing a business like the back of their hand, they'll get the financial stuff and the banking and, and the accounting all settled. They'll get, they'll work with salespeople or whatever. They'll work on the, the operations side of things, and they'll figure out like, okay, here's where the business is going. I'm going to find out, who we should hire. Because sometimes, sometimes the founder's like an absolutely amazing product person, right?
Yeah.
And
often the case,
or maybe they're a great software developer or whatever, and then they kind of think they can do everything, but they can't, right?
Yeah.
And so CEO is a good first hire for those folks. But for me, it was the accountant. That's just I wasn't going to do that.
Well, I think for everybody, not that it's there's a million flavors of the first hire, but I think that's a question only you, the founder, can answer, right? Who's the first hire, or where's the first place you look for help? I think what you don't like is one area. What you're not good at, if you got that self-awareness, but the sooner you can kind of look for support, in that way, I think the better. Well, Paul, I've got some cylinders to go fire.
All right. Now. Yeah, I think we both do. I think we've probably, I think nobody's listening at this point, so we can probably say whatever we want. But appreciate those of you who are and have stuck with us. Really looking forward to new episodes of this coming on. Christian and I have a long list of things to talk about.
Yeah.
And looking forward to drawing on your experience, Christian, because you work with just so many great, agencies and CEOs, that's your area. And hopefully I'll have something to say about, the tech side of things, and we'll provide some value to somebody.
I'm sure that will happen.
Cool. All right.
All right, Paul. I look forward to the next time.
All right. You take care.
All right. right, take care. Bye.